is I again. Leah was also a student in my honors literature class, and as Alyssa's paper might have indicated to you, we studied monsters, and as you can see, Leah will also be discussing monsters, among other things.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Leah Isbell, and today I'm going to be talking about monstrosity that's found in the film musical Hedwig and the Angry Inch and Mary Shelley's book Frankenstein. So people are labeled as monsters or weirdos or freaks oftentimes simply because of physical differences or abnormalities that make them seem out of the norm. And oftentimes these labels are unfair, but it happens, and this unfair and unjust labeling happens to Hedwig and also to Frankenstein's monster, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And although these works were written about 150 years apart, they have a very similar plot line and message. Both Hedwig and Frankenstein's monster begin as very innocent experiments, but their inability to conform to society and also the betrayal of their creators helps kind of morph them into these monsters. So first we're going to talk a little bit about Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Have any of you seen Hedwig before? No? Okay. So a couple of you. But Hedwig is about, it starts this little boy named Hansel. And he's growing up in East Berlin, and he's kind of weird, but he's a pretty normal kid as far as kids go. And he meets, when he's about 18, meets Luther, who is an American soldier. And Luther offers to help him escape from East Berlin by marrying him if he'll get a sex change operation. So, Hedwig decides to take him up on his offer, or Hansel at the time, and he gets a sex change operation, but the operation goes wrong, and he's left with an angry inch between his legs. And so he's made these changes for Luther, so in a sense Luther has created him in that way. But Hansel then takes his mother's name, which is Hedwig, and moves to America with Luther. Now, we're going to be taking a look at, like as I said, Hedwig and the Angry Inch is a musical. So we're going to be taking a look at some of the lyrics from the songs used. This is one of the first songs that's played in the musical, and it's called Tear Me Down. And the lyrics of the song say that Hedwig is like that wall standing before you in the great divide between East and West, slavery and freedom, man and woman, top and bottom. Now this is kind of referring to the fact that Hedwig is kind of stuck between the gender of man and woman because of the botched sex change operation. And it describes Hedwig as that wall that kind of shows the divisions or the differences between man and woman. Now, in this critical essay, Ms. Sitnewski, she suggests that we think about the question, are things, including humans, defined by their opposition to what they are not? So is a man only a man because he's not a woman? Something else to think about. This is one of the critical works that we focused on a lot in this class, and it was Monster Culture of the Seven Species by Jeffrey Jerome Cohen. And he says that refusal to participate in the classificatory order of things is true of monsters generally. So monsters are always really, really hard to classify because they're typically hybrid in some way or another. And he also says that monsters are disturbing hybrids whose externally incoherent bodies generally resist attempts to include them in any kind of systematic structuration. So taking this back to Hedwig, we see that Hedwig is stuck between the gender of male and female. So he's definitely considered a hybrid that can't be classified because of the incoherence of his body. And yet another quote from Cohen, he says that a monster is a dangerous form suspended between forms that threatens to smash distinctions. And because of that, many people in society fear hybrids like Hedwig because we like having distinctions between male and female, black and white. Now here are some more lyrics from the song Tear Me Down. It says, there ain't much of a difference between a bridge and a wall. Without me right in the middle, babe, you would be nothing at all. Now these lyrics exemplify exactly what I was just saying about how without that middle gray area, it's hard to define opposites. So now how does this relate back to Frankenstein? I'm sure that all of you are at least familiar with Frankenstein, but he is created from dead body parts and reanimated so that he has life. And when we think about that, you know, he's kind of human in the sense that he's made of human body parts, but they were dead body parts. So he's kind of stuck between the alive and dead and the human and monster side of things. So like Hedwig, in that sense, he's also a hybrid. All right. So we all know that Frankenstein is a creation. He's created by Dr. Frankenstein. And Hedwig is also a creation because Luther is the one that actually convinces him to get this exchange operation in the first place. And after that takes place, Luther and Hedwig move to America, but not long after they get there, Luther leaves Hedwig for someone else. So Hedwig is in this new place, unfamiliar, and he's all alone and doesn't, you know, really know what to do. And the same thing is true back again for Frankenstein. Okay. And this is also not very long after Dr. Frankenstein's monster has been awakened. The monster is rejected because of his appearance and his overall scary demeanor, and he's left to fend for himself in a world that he's completely unfamiliar with. And in Frankenstein's monster's case, he actually challenges Dr. Frankenstein, and he asks him, why would you form a monster so hideous that even you turn from him in disgust? So even though Hedwig doesn't question as much, you can see that both Hedwig and Frankenstein's monster are really frustrated with the fact that even their creators can't accept them for who they are. Now this is another song from Hedwig and the Angry Inch. It's called Exquisite Corpse, and it's talking about the physical description of Hedwig. And he describes himself as a collage, a montage, and he talks about razor-cut scar map going across his body, which for me reminded me of the physical description of Frankenstein and how he is sewn together from various body parts. And this detail in the similarity of the descriptions just kind of further reasserts that both Hedwig and Frankenstein's are kind of monstrous hybrids, and this song may actually even be a direct reference to Frankenstein. Now, in this critical essay, Miss Marcia Bundy-Seabury, she said that monsters simply wish not to be deemed deviant from humanity to be able to fulfill basic human needs. And she also says that both learning and caring are central among their wants. So Hedwig and Frankenstein's monster, the only thing that they really want is to be loved and accepted. But when they're rejected by their creators and by society, they're kind of left with nothing. And they're both in these really unfamiliar places, and they have to learn how to live in that unfamiliar world, but they don't have any help. And then Christian Blood here, he states that Hedwig's angry inch leaves her caught between the two poles of the gender binary. And this goes back to the hybrid part of being a monster, and how Hedwig is a hybrid of sorts because she is caught between the two genders, male and female, and Frankenstein, like I said before, is caught between the alive and the dead side of things. So perhaps the biggest reason why these creations were rejected by their creators in society is because, like Cohen says, both Frankenstein's monster and Hedwig were viewed by society as this sort of difference-made flesh come to dwell among them. And society typically doesn't like differences. We like everything to be black and white and normal, and we like for things to be nice and neat and conform. But in both instances, in Hedwig and also in Frankenstein, the creator and the creation, the extreme contrast that can be found between them, that's what leads to the abandonment of the creation by the creator. And it leaves the creation all alone in a society that can't handle dealing with them and will always view them as monsters. And thus, once Hedwig and Frankenstein's monster have been deserted by their creators, their only source of support it's gone, and the hybrids suffer a similar fate and are forced to live their lives fighting against the damning label of a monster.